Well, good morning. So the space between, chapter 7. Now, to be quite honest, the concept of the space between has been the most helpful insight for me in the last, say, 5 years working with couples. Stewarding the space between, I now believe, is the fastest way forward for any couple to move forward in their relationship. Negativity in the space between causes disconnect, and what couples want is connection. So the simplest thing, you cannot keep putting negativity in the space between. It'll kill you. Negativity is your relationship like cancer is your body. And if the space between becomes too negative, then people start to avoid. Why would they go into a toxic space? So understand first that the space between is not just an unoccupied area. The authors say, think of the space between you and everyone else in relation to the spaces in the universe itself. When we look up at the night sky, we're looking into outer space. It was long believed that the space between heavenly bodies was empty. But then astrologers discovered that powerful energy fields exist between them that influence what they become. The same holds true for the space between you and those with whom you interact. Yes, it may be invisible, and it may appear to be empty, but this relational space is also replete with energy that determines the quality of relationships with family, friends, co-workers, and anyone else in your sphere. The fact is that your life takes place in the space between you and everyone with whom you come in contact. And it's simple. When I ask couples if they can feel tension in the space between, they all agree. They know right away, intuitively. You know, they recognize it immediately. The space between is either tension-free or it's not. There's sort of no middle ground. And the authors go on, the space between is not a metaphor or a psychological construct. It's something that exists between all of us. It's ontological, an unchangeable feature of reality. You can influence the quality of the field and determine whether it's positive or negative by what you think, do, and say to others. So the question then becomes, what are you putting into that energy field? And they say, we all live from the past toward the future. And our brains are primed to anticipate that whatever happened in the past could happen in the future. And remember, we've talked about our brain has a negativity bias. So the key then is to become conscious, to become aware. Your energy really follows your attention. And we have control over where we focus our energy. You know, where you put your energy. In the office, the structure of the safe conversation process gives two people a safe way to communicate in their space between. The very structure ensures safety because it takes things out of the power struggle. It doesn't make you right and me wrong. And obviously, if it can help in the office, the safe conversation process can help in any communication because, pardon me, because it keeps you from being reactive or defensive. And a good rule of thumb is always, if you feel defensive, it's a good time to mirror. You know, rather than defend yourself, just say, okay, wait a minute now. Here's what I'm hearing you say. Did I get it? Now, interestingly enough, they go on, in recent decades, the field of neuroscience has had two breakthroughs relevant to the space between you and those with whom you engage. And I'm more familiar with the first and the second. The first was to understand that our brain is much more malleable than previously thought. The process is called neuroplasticity, which allows our brain to reorganize their structure and how they function. I remember years ago, Norman Doidge, a Canadian, wrote the book, The Brain That Changes Itself. All right? And we know that the brain is much more plastic. Neuroplasticity is the term they use, but more malleable, I guess, maybe is another word. We can change the neural pathways. The second was the discovery that our brains are social, meaning they are shaped and reshaped by our experiences in the natural environment, but also most profoundly in your relationships, especially those with those closest to you. So that our brain is affected by those we hang around with. And I guess we have heard that, but the fact that the brain is really affected by that. Given all this information, how can we be more positive in what we think, say, and do to others? And the author suggests shifting from judgment to wonder and curiosity. Being judgmental stems from the self-defeating attitude we discussed in previous chapters, the unwillingness or failure to accept differences between you and others. As we noted before, accepting difference is one of the greatest challenges we all face in trying to engage productively with other humans. Why? Because we are all imperfect specimens. None of us are perfect. Remember that difference is the defining feature of nature. When you embrace the differences in others, you open your life to new possibilities. They may also become curious about you rather than judgmental. And the authors go on, we are champions of welcoming our differences with others to invite collaboration, cooperation, and co-creation into the space between. So again, for me, like I said, the space between that, understanding that better has been very helpful working with clients. You cannot keep putting negativity in the space between. And if it goes for couples, it goes everywhere. All right, so next week we look at Chapter 8, how the safe conversation process can work in every aspect of life. And they give a number of examples, and I'll get into that next week. Okay, have a great week. Cheers.